Hey, welcome back to the Unbelievable Podcast. I am BJ Rydell, back here with my guy, Drew Mahold. And today, we're coming off of a bit of a roller coaster victory. We'll break that down in detail, obviously. We'll also go through the skull scale, as we do on every Tuesday episode. We've got some great responses that we'll check in with and react to. And then we'll finish up with just some thoughts on fandom in general. But the bulk of this episode will obviously be breaking down the Vikings' ridiculous victory over the Denver Broncos. As always, or I guess not as always, but relatively new, you can find us on Daily Norseman now in the Climbing the Pocket network. So if you had been already checking us out on iTunes or Stitcher or whatever medium you're using, awesome. But just know that we are now available on Daily Norseman and the Climbing the Pocket network. So shout out to them. All right, so let's talk about this. Let's talk about this football game. My game plan here is I want to talk about it on kind of a broad scale, kind of the emotional roller coaster, like I said before, to use that same term again. That's exactly what it was. I want to talk about that kind of in more detail. So just before we kick that off, I'll give you your summary of the game that you don't need, but just your quick refresher. Since I know you watched the game, and I'm sure that you've already been listening to other talk shows, but I'll give you the quick refresher anyways. Vikings came out absolutely flat, one of the flattest starts to a football game that I've ever seen, not just the Vikings, just in general. They could not do literally anything right. Denver staked themselves out to a 20-0 lead in the first half. That was a combination of a lot of different issues that the Vikings were having. Special teams, fumbles. Kirk Cousins got that fumble that we kind of projected that he was going to have. Quite literally everything went wrong. The Vikings' play calling in the first half from an offensive perspective was not great. And from a defensive perspective, it seemed like their guys were out of position quite a bit, and Brandon Allen was kind of eating them up. Cortland Sutton, the phenomenal wide receiver that they got there, second-year guy, ate them up, especially during the first half, but was pretty consistent throughout the game. Going into halftime, Anderson Dejo had a great interception that might have changed the outlook of the game. I think we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. And something changed. Something snapped in the second half. The Vikings came out ridiculously hot on offense. They scored on every single drive. They held Denver to 3 points in the second half. Denver continues its streak without a touchdown in the fourth quarter. And your Minnesota Vikings roller coastered their way to a 27-23 victory that pretty much no one has done in the last 5 years. Literally no one in the last 5 years has done. And I think they proved a lot of people wrong, and rightfully so. I think pretty much everyone counted them out of this game. Ultimately, the Vikings come back and get that W when it really seemed in doubt, at least for the first 30 minutes, if not longer. So that is your game summary right there. Drew, why don't you talk to me about your feelings about this game? Tell me about the emotional roller coaster that you went on personally.
Well, I think every single Vikings fan was thinking about the Bills game last year.
Yeah.
You had really, it was about the same score almost. I think it was 27-0 actually last year in the Bills game, and that's about almost what it was when Abdullah fumbled that kick return, and Denver had it in the red zone towards the end of the half there. Thankfully, Sendejo was able to get an interception and keep the scoring at 20-0, which actually proved to be a big deal in this game.
Yeah.
But I think every single Vikings fan thought back to that game, thought about being double-digit favorites against an AFC opponent, against a young quarterback named Allen, if you really want to get specific about it. But something happened at halftime. I don't know if there was a talk, if Kirk flipped a switch, I don't know what happened at halftime, but definitely on the cool throne is halftime speeches, because something was said in the locker room. And I know John Krasinski has put up a really good column on The Athletic about Stefon Diggs and how he kind of was fired up on the sidelines. And I know that he was, from sources that were at the game, he was being shown a lot on screen, kind of firing up his team. And that also kind of fired up the crowd. And if you're a believer in momentum, that type of thing really matters. So big win for Diggs. In terms of, I don't know if you saw the hate that Chris Harris, the cornerback for Denver, was giving him about his speed. He said a quote about how Diggs doesn't have the breakaway speed that some of the other top top-tier receivers have, so he's not going to burn us, and then Diggs burns exactly him for a 54-yard touchdown. But a lot of people have been doubting that Kirk can bring the team back. I think he was 0-11 when losing in the fourth quarter as a Viking. Obviously, the stat too about the last X many years, teams down by 20.5 or 0-99. So both, if you want to say, are statistically due. The Vikings were due, I guess, in that way. But odds were definitely stacked against them. Win probability for Denver was like 96% at one point. Vikings came back and won the game. That shows resolve, and it shows that they can overcome a horrendous start to win football games.
Yeah. I hated this football game. And I think that I did. I genuinely did not enjoy my fan experience as a Vikings fan this weekend. And here's why. I think that I said this a couple times. But there have been some people that have been like, oh yeah, I get it. And then there have been other people who have been like, dude, that was one of the most thrilling victories that you're gonna find. And I agree that it certainly was. That comeback was not only historic, but it was completely unprecedented. There's nothing to suggest that the Vikings had any potential to do this. They've never done this in the past. They quite literally they shattered a Kearse. I mean, I think back to all the millions of times that, well, it's not actually millions, you know what I mean, hundreds of times that this type of thing has happened where the Vikings get down and every fan in the state, with the exception of a couple of kind of I think sort of delusional fans, apologize if that's offending someone, but I kind of see that as a little bit delusional, was ready to book this one in and walk away from the TV. And for me personally, I've never been someone that walks away from any sporting event, right? When I was probably 8 years old, I was at a baseball game with one of my buddies and his dad. And it was a Twins game. I think they were playing Boston or New York or one of those AL East teams that just always seem to whomp the Twins. And I think the Twins were down something like 8-0 in like the fourth inning or something like that. There was zero chance of them coming back, and they ultimately didn't come back. But I remember my buddy and I, keep in mind that we were like 10, 11, 12 years old or whatever. We didn't want to be there. You know how kids have short attention spans. Combined with the fact that the Twinks were getting rocked. I mean, we wanted to get out of there. And I remember my buddy's dad was like, no, you never leave a sporting event, no matter whatever it is. First of all, you paid to be there. Second of all, something can change. They play, in this case, 4 quarters, in my historic brief here, 9 innings at least, for a reason. They do that stuff. I mean, that's how the game is set up. It's never over. It's essentially what this comes down to. But and that kind of stuck with me for the rest of my life. So I've never been someone that walks away from the TV. I've never been someone that walks out of the stadium early. None of that kind of stuff. But this one, I was shook straight up. Right? Okay. Like the first 15 minutes were about as hard to watch emotionally as a fan. And I try to honestly, I do try to disconnect my sentiment, like my personal feelings, being born in Minnesota, and like I have to be a Vikings fan. I don't even have a choice anymore. Like I just actively hope, I have an active interest in, them winning football games. But this one really hammered me, man. Like this was very, very challenging for me to watch. The Vikings literally did nothing right. They could not move the ball on offense. The play calling was frustrating. They were turning the ball over, and if they weren't turning it over, they were almost turning it over. They were getting shredded by a ridiculously, like, a quarterback that has no business in this league for them, like, on most Sundays. I mean, he should be at the very best a backup quarterback, and I mean that's pretty much what he is. And they were getting shredded by this guy. And then on top of that, you got Cortland Sutton throwing passes downfield that are getting caught. I mean, put that take all of that, and then you take into the perspective that the Vikings, like, there were so many different times where the ball just floated over Xavier Rhodes' hands or just missed the outstretched arms of Trey Waynes and fell complete. That happened. It was so much to take in. It was body blow after body blow after body blow. And for the first time in years, I took a break. I stood up and I went and took a shower because I was like, I couldn't watch the game. It was affecting my happiness, and generally, like, I try to only allow sporting events to affect my happiness in a positive way. But the thing about football is you only get one of these a week, so you want to watch the game, right? And that's
yeah. Well, each one matters just that much more than a baseball game.
Right. You always have tomorrow night or whatever it is. You got 161 more of these guys. With this, we've got 5 games left this season. So I got out of the shower and I actually walked out of the shower to Kirk Cousins fumbling, which is my worst nightmare because I called that from last week's show. I think a lot of us saw that potential outcome and it happened. So that's just even more frustrating. And it was really, really tough to watch in the first half. Second half was, don't get me wrong, the Ford touchdown drives, amazing. That was crack for Vikings fans. I mean, you could it was thrilling stuff. I mean, they were doing so many things well. All of your favorite players were getting involved. I mean, you saw Irv Smith get his first touchdown, which was awesome. You saw Kyle Rudolph have yards after catch for the first time in 2 years. Stephon Diggs breaks loose. I mean, Dalvin Cook got into the end zone for your fantasy team. I mean, everything was just chugging on. Everything was perfect. Then you get to that last drive, and that last drive was borderline harassment. Honestly, they couldn't.
You mean the Denver's last drive?
Yeah,
right?
Denver's last drive. Yeah, the defense couldn't. They would get 3 stops in a row, and then 2 different occasions they converted on 4th down. It was. How do you not believe in momentum at that point? It was demoralizing. It was tough to watch. My heart was racing. I was uncomfortable throughout. I was breaking out in the sweat.
I was sweating. Oh yeah.
This was not fun. That's not yes, I'm thrilled that the Vikings won this game, but this was not fun. It was not a fun experience for me, top to bottom. And I mean, I look at the scoreboard now, and I love it. I mean, I can enjoy my Monday. I'm happy that the Vikings are 8-3. I'm happy that we have a positive show for you today. But my God, I did not have a good experience at all. I guess that's my 2 cents of the game.
Interesting. I mean, so the rush that a fan gets, when you're watching your team, and it's a close game. See, I enjoy that, and the fact that the Vikings even brought it to a close game was enough for me to overall be satisfied with my experience watching the game. So we differ there a little bit, but I agree that it was extremely stressful, and I was sweating the entire time because if in the grand scheme, they're playing the Broncos at home. This quarterback, like you said, is not a starter. This roster on offense has 1 playmaker that's worth a lot, right? Yep. Cortland Sutton.
Yep.
Noah Fant could be maybe if he was targeted more. Point being, though, actually he had a lot of targets yesterday. That J-Ron Kearse broke up down the stretch, but it was one of those you go into the game kind of assuming, but you don't want to assume, don't get ahead of yourself, but you assume that the Vikings should win this game.
We were very confident about this game.
And then right before halftime, you're thinking, well, 7-4, division's probably out of the question now.
Right.
It's for sure going to be a wild card game in the playoffs on the road. That type of thing creeps into your mind.
Mm-hmm. All those negative future outlooks.
Yep.
Yeah. The narratives that the media has been hammering us for.
The narrative of Kirk, he fumbled poorly. That was obviously Riley Reef getting or completely whiffing on the block is one thing, but Kirk fumbling and not being able to play from behind, all this stuff, you start thinking about it, and then for them to come back, make it a game. Kirk, phenomenal performance, and I don't know if we want to say the MVP, bring that up again, but it's worth bringing up. Because this is one of those games where
this is an MVP performance.
This is why you pay a quarterback $84 million guaranteed dollars, is because when everything else is going wrong, you can say, "Okay, Kirk, let's win this game," or "You win this game," and that's exactly what he did. And he made every single throw he needed to in the second half. They went 4 for 4 on touchdown drives. They got the ball 4 times and they scored a touchdown every time. I don't know what else you want from him there.
Yeah.
The emotions, obviously, it's unbelievable. You get every single emotion that a Vikings fan, can experience every season, where you get the high expectations before the game, we're going to win this game. So you're at home against an inferior opponent. This is classic. Get your high expectations. You get the incredible disappointment, letdown, a la Eagles in 2017. Yep. You got the first half, just nothing went right. Team is flat. The devastation there. Then you get the kind of
hope.
They're making it interesting. The hope, yeah.
The hope slips into your mind. Oh my God, and I don't like that.
Yeah, but then it's as Brandon Allen is slowly driving Denver on the final drive, you get they're gonna blow this.
Here we go again. You start thinking about 2003
Cardinals
game now.
Yep. So, yep, he got every emotion possible, and then the rare instance here where the Vikings actually do hold on for the win and do hold on and fulfill that hope that they kind of generated in the fourth quarter early on. That so you got every type of emotion you want as a fan there.
And some you don't want to.
It was overall it was fun, but I'm with you. Like I'm not with you, but I understand if it was not fun for some, just because of how uncomfortable the entire thing was, from the devastation of the first half to the sweat, literally the sweat in the second half.
Yeah. It was a wild ride. That's really the simplest way to put it. Yeah, that's it. Let's narrow in the focus here from kind of the broad outlook. I mean, the difference here is, you mentioned it. This is an astronomical difference on that last play of the game. The difference between being 8-4 in this situation in the NFC with so many teams, and the difference between that and being 7-4, and like you said, I mean, thinking about the future for this team and the immediate future for this team, the outlook is just simply not very good. I mean, with that one play that Kearse makes at the end of the game there, you drastically altered what the potential for this Vikings team is this season. And obviously, this all starts with Kirk Cousins. So we've talked about him a little bit already, but I mean, let's break down this performance bit by bit. The first half for Cousins, honestly, I didn't think the first half was that bad. Now, give me a second here to explain. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. He turned the ball over, so he made the cardinal error there that he has made throughout his career, not just with the Vikings, but with Washington as well. For what it's worth, he has not been fumbling basically at all over the last month or so. Just put that in perspective, but. He was playing the game that he's called, as he loves to say during his post-game press conferences. He was playing the game that was called, and I personally don't believe that's Kevin Stefanski and Gary Kubiak were calling to a very good game in that first half. Now, the decision-making, couple of blunders there, not great. Nobody likes seeing him ever check down to C.J. Ham, but especially on a free play. I've seen that one all over the place.
Like that.
That was not good. The failure to kind of stretch the field, throwing the intermediate and deep routes. I honestly think the one deep pass that they threw during the first half was the one that got called back on a Riley Reef hold. The Stephon Diggs catch that kind of for a flash of time, you kind of breathe some life into the Vikings, and then immediately gets pulled back. And so the first half was it wasn't good, but it wasn't horrible. He wasn't the reason, or he wasn't the sole reason why the Vikings were down 20-0. That's on the defense, but I digress. The second half, on the other hand, might have been peak Kirk Cousins, the best version of Kirk Cousins that you will ever see, and definitely the best Kirk Cousins that I have personally seen to date. I think that anytime you score on every single drive, obviously that's good, but just the little,
if true,
the little things that he did well. Specifically, the way he was throwing the ball, moving out to his left when he bootlegged out to the left side. I mean, he's got to have his ratings got to be near perfect in those situations. Yesterday, I think it was perfect. It was incredible. I mean, he was making pinpoint throws down the field. He was navigating a different style of offense, a hurry-up offense where he was making checks at the line of scrimmage, getting his guys in position. I mean, there was a couple of different times where he quite literally pointed out to Stephon Diggs and said, go, you need to be lined up off the line of scrimmage in this situation. Then he turns to his left and he's like, Irv Smith, all right, you're over here. I mean, he was conducting the entire offense for 4 consecutive drives, and they were running the ball down the field. Big play after big play after big play, and doing so without Dalvin Cook as well, who was basically a non-factor as a rusher yesterday. So he literally put the team on his back, down 20-0, staring in the face of all these just horrific narratives that are, to a degree, accurate, but also created by the media and people like us as well. And he didn't care. I mean, how people question his mentality, he's allowing stuff to get into his head. I mean, that was just the furthest thing from the truth in this game.
I really don't think he lets any outside noise get to him. I think it's simply a matter of it's a matter of in-game pressure. I think when things do get to him, like
But physical pressure.
it's a matter of like the physical, like the defensive line getting close to him, and then he feel like, I don't want to use the term, seeing ghosts or feeling ghosts like that Sam Darnold did on Monday Night Football, but I feel like that's something that a lot of quarterbacks face. Like, it's not just inexperienced young guys, So, and especially when you have a poor offensive line and pass protection like Kirk has had during his time in Minnesota, like, it's very easy for that to be the case. And I think that's what gets to him more than the outside noise. I really don't think he gives one, about what we say or what Vikings fans think or what Colin Cowherd says. Like, I don't think he cares. So
he seems to reinforce that too, at least as of late.
It's just unfortunately, again, a lot of this is for his ability, whatever his attitude towards come from behind, how his mindset shifts, his style of play, whatever it is. It's a combination of things, but he just hasn't been successful in comeback situations in his career. He just hasn't. And I think this has to be a huge confidence booster for him from that perspective to say, okay, well, now let's say the Vikings are trailing Seattle, on Monday Night Football in a couple weeks by a couple possessions in the fourth quarter. They don't need to buckle down and they don't need to buckle in and just give up. Like, they know that they have the firepower to come back. And especially if they get Kirk moving to his left, like, he's as accurate as anybody in the NFL. So this is big from that perspective because, again, Denver's a really good defense. Like, this is perhaps the toughest defense that Kirk has faced this season. He just ripped them in the second half.
Yeah, and that's important to note here because people want to it's mainly Packers fans for what it's worth, but people in general want to discount the Vikings' ability to come back here because Denver is, not a good football team. At least what the record says they're a very bad football team.
They do have. I'm trying to think of their losses though.
I think it's
close.
three of them. I think it's three games they lost.
They have
in the
three
fourth
games
quarter.
by 2 exactly. They have this game by 4. They have the Bears game they should not have lost that game. Trubisky had that completion on the field with less than a second left, and they gave him another play. And somehow the Bears kicker made a clutch kick. That never happens. Right. And then they had, I think, the Colts game a couple weeks ago where Adam Vinatieri was like 0 for 12 in the game, and then he buried a game winner. So it's stuff like that has happened to this team that, they're really close to being good. And it's another close loss for them. And it's, again, I think Kirk, this is a signature performance for Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. Yeah. Now, this is, again, this is by no means the same thing as beating Seattle or as, valuable of a win per se as something like Seattle would be next in 2 weeks. But it's super impressive, and I think it's, again, if you believe in momentum, you believe in the camaraderie aspect of winning football games, you really like this win because of how they finished the game and how they fought through a really, really bad start to still get a win while pretty much everybody besides Kirk was not at their best in this game.
Yeah. It was a banner performance for Kirk Cousins for sure. And like I said, he did so many different things well. The deep passes were on point. I mean, you cannot throw a better ball than the one that he threw to Diggs on the touchdown. It literally,
unbelievable.
It was pinpoint accuracy. I mean, you got Chris Harris in coverage there too. I mean, one of the best cover guys in the country. It's just like he did the things right from a captain standpoint, right? Like a leader. He did his job, but then he also did it from like a technical standpoint, like the way he was maneuvering around in the pocket, evading pressure. I mean, the Broncos got to him 5 times yesterday. There was real pressure there. Pat Elflein, Riley Reif, and Garrett Bradbury all had negative PFF grades if you're someone who buys into that. Like significant, like very bad, bottom tier PFF grades. So if you're into that, I mean, that just suggests that the offensive line was horrid. I mean, and they were. And he was able to kind of navigate around that, find ways to, still get the ball to his playmakers in the second half. I mean, it still baffles me that they don't force feed Diggs more, but they did in the second half. That worked.
I think everybody's in agreement there. The first half when they didn't take any shots besides the one to Diggs downfield.
It just doesn't make sense.
If he's one-on-one with anybody in football, you give him a chance, and that obviously has to improve moving forward. And it's not as easy as we were making it sound like. Okay, get to the line of scrimmage, you see one-on-one and throw it. There's more to it than that, but you need to force feed a guy that's that talented because I saw somebody on Twitter, I can't remember who it was, but they were making a note of how few pass attempts the Vikings have as a team and how many yards Diggs has generated out of that. And like you put him on scale with some of the leaders in terms of the pass attempts comparison, and he's certainly up there. Like,
what do you think?
Top 5 ranking in football.
What do you like? Just without looking at, I have the stat in front of me. Just as
Okay.
as someone who has watched all the games and watched them, with kind of an intricate eye. What do you think his yards per reception is this season?
Yards per reception?
Yeah. So every time he catches the ball, what's the average?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a heck of a lot more than last year. Last year he was exactly 10. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Probably 14, 15.
It's 19.1 on the season. Okay.
That's
and then
literally double last year. Pretty much.
And then Matthew Collar on Score North today said he did it by target. It's 15 yards per target. So even the balls that are falling incomplete, he's averaging 15 yards per target this season.
That's incredible. That has to be. That has to rank pretty.
It's otherworldly. High. It's not like
it has to rank pretty freaking high in NFL right now.
It's like it's one of those statistics where like you can easily kind of disqualify it because obviously if it's incomplete, like you got 0 yards, right? But like just the fact that like if you just target him more, I mean the numbers will eventually kind of regress to the mean. To use a math word for you.
15 yards per target is absurd.
Yeah,
it is absurd. Like.
Yeah. And you mentioned it too, to come off of where he was at last year, 102 receptions, little over over 1,000 yards.
He was basically 100 for 1,000, more or less, right?
Yeah,
that's basically what was
102 for 120. So it's crazy. That's the one. That's kind of the major. It's a big critique. I mean, there are obviously bigger ones that come out of this game, but that's an important one. You got to find a way to get him the ball more. But Cousins was able to find him a lot during that second half, and he had an explosive performance, as he seems to do. I think there's a very strong argument that, I think it's pretty much definitive at this point because he does have the one play that matters more than anything else. He's the most clutch receiver that the Vikings have ever had. And we're talking about a list of Chris Carter, Randy Moss, Jake Reed. I mean...
Yeah, so Stephon Diggs leads the NFL in yards per target.
Yeah.
That's not that's surprising, but like I'm trying to look here. I'm just looking at Pro Football Reference right now. And of the top, 10, there are 4 of them with 60 or more targets. You got Diggs, then you have Amari Cooper, who's at 11.2 yards per target. You have Cortland Sutton, who has 10.6. You have
Michael Thomas.
Tyler Lockett, 10.4. Michael Thomas has 10 exactly yards per target. Mm-hmm. He has 114 targets this year. Holy smokes! But like the efficiency there is incredible. So basically, what we're saying is by giving some cool numbers, but basically we're saying get this guy the ball more because nobody is more efficient. Literally nobody's more efficient, and it's not really close. With their targets, it's Stephon Diggs,
and he does it in the biggest of moments. Obviously a wide receiver's performance is somewhat a product of the quarterback. But the fact that he's always open when the Vikings seem to need it most, whether it's the kind of the fluky Minneapolis Miracle where it took a mistake plus a gutsy throw, or the fact that he shredded Chris Harris on that play. I can't wait till the Alt-22 comes out because he was he had 3 steps on him. So it's crazy. He was outstanding. He showed up in the biggest moment. This is the type of game where you need to have this if you want to have not just win the division, but if you want to have a shot at winning, getting a first round bye and playing at home throughout. You need to have this type of win. I mean, grand scheme, AFC opponent. It doesn't affect your conference record, any of those tiebreakers. But if you want to be a team that's competing for a bye, you need to have these wins. And the Vikings found a way to do that, basically because Kirk Cousins turned it on in a way that we have never seen before.
Correct.
And honestly, we may never see this again. And it's great it's nice to know. It's nice to have physical evidence, video evidence, proof definitively that the Vikings have the capacity to go down the field against a great defense and come back when they're down on multiple scores. This is not something that you could say about Teddy Bridgewater, who I love and have defended for years, but you can't say that about Teddy Bridgewater. No way in hell Teddy Bridgewater's coming back down 20 points. It's not his game. He never did that. I mean, Case Keenum, maybe. Maybe Case Keenum, but not
Not
Bridgewater.
Case Keenum.
Definitely
Case
not.
Keenum.
He might. I mean, maybe not 20 points, but he does have kind of the cojones to make those.
Oh,
Those
he
throws.
does. He's got the cojones to launch the ball down the field. We know that.
My point being here is I don't remember a Vikings quarterback in my lifetime. So you can exclude Fran Tarkenton and all those old school names that you want to throw out there. There's been no Vikings quarterback other than Cousins and then Favre for a single season, which is he's not a Vikings quarterback. I mean, we say it as a joke, but this is the first true blue Vikings quarterback where I've been able to be like, okay, if we're down 2 scores against a good defense, there's now proof that this guy can do it. He did it. Okay, so that's the biggest takeaway for me, and honestly, like that makes me believe that this team can do more than seeing them come back like this. I don't care that it's an inferior opponent; just the fact that they did it. It's there now. We know they can do it. We can believe. For those of you who do love hope, and honestly, who love hope to the point of delusion, you have facts to back up that now.
Yes.
And that's awesome. That's a great feeling as a fan. It's like to know that you're never out of the game, like you said before, this is why you pay the guy $84 million, period.
Yep. Straight up. This is exactly why. And I think we've all kind of been waiting for something like this where
we needed it.
I mean, we're not waiting for the team, the other 52 guys on the team to have a bad performance, it's just so Kirk can get this win, but it does validate that the contract he has. I mean,
absolutely.
I think we've been waiting for that, because last year there were games where, like the Packers game that was a tie at Lambeau where he played phenomenally. They didn't quite come away with a win because of a kick, or you had the Rams game last year where he did the same thing, and it was just happened to be that Jared Goff had the best performance of his lifetime.
Yep.
This is one where he truly put the team on his back, and they won because of him. Yep. It kind of, in a way, redeems the Packers loss week 2. Obviously, the Packers loss means more in scheduling and division rivalry, whatnot. But in a way, that this is the best way that Kirk can kind of make up for it is really winning a game because of his performance. So I kind of want to get to Skull Skill here because we have a lot of good ones, but I do want to also give a shout out to Jaron Kearse and the way he filled in.
I was just gonna say we should brief on the defense quick here.
Yeah,
I mean,
I just want to touch on Jaron Kearse because I think the secondary overall was beaten for the. You can't let Brandon Allen and is it Tim Patrick? I don't even know his name, but Patrick.
Yeah, Tim Patrick.
Portland Sutton's a good player. I'm okay with the Vikings getting beat by him a few times, but Brandon Allen shouldn't be torching you. We know that. Secondary got beat. There's nothing more to discuss there, and I think it's at a concerning level at this point. The last 2 weeks, Dak got whatever he wanted. Brandon Allen got pretty much whatever he wanted, but the bright spot for me is I think Hunter and Griffin are still getting pressures at a stupid rate.
Yep.
Rushing the passer, and then Jaron Kearse filled in and was clutch down the stretch as the Broncos tried to target Noah Fant. He was not letting it happen. So those are my 2 bright spots on the defense.
Kearse is a guy who, in the last couple weeks, if you follow his Twitter account, has been a little bit outspoken about his kind of annoyance with the fact that he hasn't been getting more playing time. And he actually got Mike Zimmer to say during a press conference today that he probably should be playing more. And I mean, the performance that he had was such a championship level performance. It's like you could tell that he came from Clemson because he was ready for the big moment, and he was ready for it.
He wanted the moment, too.
And he got it like 4 times in a row, and he came up big every single time. You wouldn't know this by watching that game, but Brandon Allen actually finished with under 50% completion, largely because of Jaron Kearse. I think he was 0 for 5 when he was shooting at Jaron Kearse. So he was shutting down Fant and the other tight end. I don't remember that dude's name, but he was silencing tight ends, which Anthony Barr was struggling with throughout the game. Kearse comes in. I mean, that big nickel package is looking really nice against tight ends right now because Kearse he was doing a phenomenal job. And then he excelled in that big moment, like he said. It became a bend but don't break type of situation. And the Vikings did not break because of that type of performance from Kearse. I am very concerned about Xavier Rhodes at this point. I'm with all of you guys. I think that he is, at the very least, to put it kindly, a subpar cornerback right now. That's where he's at. Trey Waynes had a humongous tackle, which he's come a long way as a tackler. since his rookie season, and part of that is probably putting on some bulk and some other technical things. But that tackle that he made on third and short in the backfield, or well, not necessarily in the backfield, but on the kind of the right sideline for a 4-yard loss was humongous. So he had a couple of nice plays, but in coverage, not great. I mean, Mike Hughes got burnt to a crisp again. I guess he's technically, I mean, games wise, he's still pretty much a rookie, so some of that is somewhat expected. But the coverage was not good, and that's something that's going to need to improve if we're truly going to have Super Bowl aspirations for this team. But I mean, the defense as a whole was not great. They still only allowed 23, but again, you're playing against Brandon Allen. It's not like it's disheartening for sure. I'm with you guys who are complaining about the defense, who have a problem with the defense right now. They need to be way better, but at least you can count on the front four. Jaleel Johnson had maybe his best game as a pro. Got I believe either his first or second career sack. So that's
he made some big plays.
He did make some big plays, and keep in mind he's filling in for Joseph, so it's nice to see that you have that type of depth there. And then with the exception to in coverage, Anthony Barr was not great, but I thought that Barr was a solid player. I mean, he's not I don't know if he's ever going to live up to that contract, and that's probably a discussion we can have down the road because he got a very big contract. Like, he got an edge rusher contract to not really be a true edge rusher, to be kind of an all-purpose linebacker, and I don't really know if that's something that's, I don't think that he necessarily excels in that way, but he was able to make a couple of nice plays. But again, that's secondary, man. That's a problem. Harrison Smith limps off with a hamstring too. There are some real concerns.
Which that's I mean, it's concerning, but when you have Jaron Kearse getting targeted 5 times, allowing exactly 0 receptions, you feel a little bit better about it. Xavier Rhodes, by the way, official numbers from Pro Football Focus: 5 targets, allowed 4 receptions for 110 yards, and also had 2 penalties.
Yep.
So not great.
Not good.
And really, teams should just be throwing it at him as much as they can, because
he needs safety help at this point.
Chances are, if the completion is not allowed down the field, there's probably going to be a penalty on top of it. So it's one or the other.
That's a real. By
the way, very
problem.
Shocking that they just didn't go to Sutton at all in that final drive there. I mean, I think he had one completion early on in the drive, and then as it got in the red zone, they didn't even look that way, which was interesting. But all right, skull skill time. Let's go ours first. I'll start by saying, coming into the week, I did not expect a Broncos win to change, a win over the Broncos to change my number. I think it was at 8. But the way this played out, and it obviously it means a lot to have, ending on a positive note versus if the Vikings, let's say they get up to 24-0 lead and then they just squeaked by with like a 4-point win. But I'm gonna up it to about 8.3, and that's literally only because of Kirk Cousins. I'm gonna go 8.5, a full half point, just because I know Kirk can put the team on his back and win a game now. Yeah. So from 8 to 8.5, and again, coming into the week, I would not have, under normal circumstances, given the Vikings any extra boost for beating Denver at home. But the way Kirk, against a top 5 defense, put the team on his back, and really, again, they win this game because of Kirk Cousins, and the fact that he can do that now and is living up to that contract with that win, certainly that gives me a half-point boost in the skull skill.
Yeah, I was at 8.5 last week. I'm going to just jump up a couple points here, because I think that 8.5 is a pretty good place to be after this one, keeping in mind that, again, the skull scale is to suggest that, how many teams in the league do you think the Vikings can beat, and, what are the chances that, you believe that they can win, they could truly win, a tough game.
How many teams are they better than? To me, it's what percentage of teams are the Vikings better than?
Right. And I think that 85%, so 8.5 is pretty solid. I'll jump up to 8.8 because I do want to boost for the same reason that you just said, that Kirk Cousins proved that he can do this. And the statistics are backing it up too. I mean, this is now it's crazy. I was counting. I mean, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 of the last 7 games. His passer rating has been over 100, and the one that wasn't was a 94.2, and that was the one against Kansas City, which was largely decreased because of his completion percentage of 50%. So he has consistent since the beginning of October. I don't know what snapped.
If it was the Bears game. It was the Adam Thielen apology. That's what it was.
Whatever it was. Whatever it was. He has snapped since then, and he is a good quarterback. You can believe. I mean, it's facts. I'm not waiting for the fall as much as I was before. That's kind of the biggest difference here. My expectations for Kirk Cousins are no longer based on his salary. They're based more on what I have seen him do now. I now believe that he can keep the Vikings in a game against anyone. It doesn't matter. I mean, Denver's as good of a defense as you're going to face. Seattle does not have this defense. Are they a more complete team?
They definitely do not have they're not the Legion of Boom anymore.
No, they are not. Are they a more complete team with a much better quarterback that, if you fall behind against, it's probably going to be a problem? Absolutely. But Kirk Cousins has proven that he can beat good defenses with timely play. That is worthy of a bump. So I will jump this thing up to 8.8.
I think it's worth noting that if, let's say, overall it's a net positive for me, but
it's
the
because
skill
we
does
to
have
this.
There's a negative effect with the defense there too. Overall the defense drops the grade a little bit, but Kirk's performance drops it, probably increases everything by about a full point. So I'm about a net half-point increase, but it's that defensive performance is just it's concerning.
But they still only allowed 23 points for what it's worth.
They did, but
it was concerning. I get it. But I'm saying
the Vikings have been lights out in that stadium.
If that's worst case
Derek
scenario,
Carr, Matt Ryan, all these guys have done nothing at US Bank Stadium this year. And for Brian Allen to go in there and have his way, it is concerning. Xavier Rhodes does not look like a number one corner, but overall positive, at least in my opinion. So let's get to your opinions now. You have James Kuno at James1297. He actually gave us 3 tweets here to kind of tell his skull scale. So I love it, by the way. He's going to give us the complete rundown here. So he's at an 8. He says, all season long we hear about the narratives around Kirk Cousins, primetime wins, winning teams, playing against good defenses, etc. Kirk has done nothing this season but shatter these narratives. He's undefeated so far in primetime wins, even beating a winning team on the road. And he just put up 300-plus yards and 3 touchdowns against a Vic Fangio defense that was ranked in the top 5 going into the game. Furthermore, he made a fourth-quarter comeback. What can he do now? While it wasn't a winning team, their record isn't as indicative of their talent. Denver lost a lot of really close games. Very true, as we mentioned earlier. They have had some tough losses this year.
Yep.
I remember hearing the broadcaster say at one point that this team isn't built to play from behind, and yet pulled it off with 4.
They did say that. They did say that the Vikings can't play if they're not.
That. I literally tweeted that exact thing. I think sarcastically I said well, hey, at least the Vikings are built to play from behind. Haha, LOL. And they literally came back and won. So,
I mean, the point that he makes, what can't they do? I mean, that really is kind of the epitome of the skull scale. If your Vikings optimism level is based on what you think the ceiling is for the Vikings, and right now I don't see the ceiling. Now, are we going to learn a lot against Seattle in 2 weeks? Oh yeah, for sure. But looking into this, going into a bye week where we don't have to judge this team on something new for 2 weeks, I mean, sky is the limit. I mean, it is. They just. What do you need them to do? They can't play Green Bay every week to redeem that game. They can't go to Soldier Field again this year and play. Those games are in the past. They lost them. It sucks. I mean, it's not great, but looking at what you've seen the last 2 months, would you truly believe that the Vikings are out of it going to Soldier Field again? No, I don't think so. If the Vikings go to Lambeau Field again this year, do you think that game looks a little bit different? I tend to think so. If the Vikings go to Foxborough right now, do you think that's going to be a competitive game with the way that the Patriots offense is playing? Do you think that they can get past the front 4 of San Francisco right now? I mean, there are question marks, there is skepticism there, but that's I love that point because truly, I think the Vikings can beat anyone. Will they beat everyone remains to be seen, and it seems unlikely, but can they do it? Absolutely. Why can't they?
They have the potential to, I think, at the least, is what we're coming to right now.
Right.
I mean, you can't say that about a lot of teams,
Most teams.
I think there's probably 8 to 10 teams that you could say this team could beat anybody.
And the parity at the top of the parity at the top of the league, not throughout the league, but the parity amongst the top 8 teams in the NFL right now suggests. I mean, there's no the San Francisco 49ers, New England Patriots, and Baltimore Ravens are essentially the juggernauts right now. You can throw New Orleans in there as well if you want. I mean, there's no reason to believe the Vikings can't compete with them. There's no reason. I mean, if the Vikings have to go to the Superdome, I don't think that's game over. I think they could still win that football game. So
I wouldn't have said that before the season. But,
absolutely.
All right. Our guy, Mr. Minnesota, at Mr. Minnesota, he says a 10. He's all in. He's pushing all the chips forward. He's a 10. Knowing the Vikings can come back from a huge deficit like that is incredibly encouraging. The most underrated play of the game was Daho's interception at the end of the half. I think the Vikings lose if that interception doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
And he deserves a lot of credit for that. Yeah. You know, we like to make fun of him for knocking his own teammates out.
Everything you
everything.
But no, that's a great point. I sent that text message to one of my buddies. I literally said Sendejo of all people changed the game, and he did. If they don't intercept that ball, think about what they're going into half with. Abdullah fumbles. Let's say they only get 3 there.
They're down 23-0.
And then I mean that's a problem. That's a different game.
Sendejo's not there. That pass is probably completed, I believe, to Fant, who was behind him. Yeah. Which would be a touchdown. Oh, that would be nasty.
He did. He is the guy. Like he is
That's the unsung hero.
That's exactly. Yes, he is the unsung hero. Perfect.
All right, now we get to our guy Adam West.
Dose of reality coming. I feel.
West E1. He is for those who don't know, I'm sure people know, but he's a. I don't want to say a hater of Kirk.
A Vikings
a doubter, a truther. He's a truther of Kirk. Yeah, we'll say that. He says 7.5. We've seen this team play at the second half level before, talking about in the second half how the lights out offense. And after 2 weeks, they reverted back. So he's saying, there was a few weeks in between where Kirk and the offense were kind of sporadic. But overall, the offense has kind of gotten back on track, and he really likes the deep downfield shots. He is a big fan of getting the ball downfield to Stephon Diggs. And Adam, I know what you're talking about. I'm fully on board with that. So the Minnesota Vikings need to take more shots downfield. I think that's the big criticism here from Adam. But 7.5 is Adam West's skull scale number. So, yeah, I mean, he says going to need more consistency there. Yeah, I'm with you. More consistency. You can't just play one half of good football most of the time and win. The Vikings are able to in this case. Although I would like to see more credit from Adam when it comes to giving Kirk Cousins what he's due and realizing that this guy really put the team on his back to win the game. Now here's another account at Heat_Vikings. I think I've seen this account. Maybe another doubter of Kirk Cousins as well. Got 2 tweets here from him. He says, I have a 9 out of 10 optimism on the team and brain trust itself because they've done a good job outside of signing or a draft choice here or there, of a signing or draft choice here or there. But he goes on to say, I have a 5.5 out of 10 optimism on Cousins being capable of winning games that matter versus quality teams.
Sorry, I had...
Yeah, those watching on video, BJ was gone. I had to do a monologue there for like 10 seconds.
Did you say it? Do they even know that I was gone, or did you just keep walking?
Now they do.
Oh, damn! I just had the police just showed up at my apartment door because someone in my apartment made a phony call to the police, and they thought that it came from my room. Yeah. So I just had to basically, and this is the second time it's happened. So the guy was like, "Wait, I've seen you before." And I was like, "No."
Yeah. So those watching on YouTube just saw me stumble through Adam West's tweet and then talking to nobody basically. But anyway, it worked out. Okay, so I'm gonna restart. So I went through Adam West's tweet. I don't know if you're we're behind, so you can't really give the feedback there, unfortunately. But this next tweet here is from at Heat_Vikings. I think it's another account that has been skeptical of Kirk. Okay. If I'm remembering Vikings Twitter correctly. So these are kind of Adam and this guy are kind of like the leaders of the Kirk skepticism. So he says 9 out of 10 optimism on the team and brain trust itself because they've done a great job outside of a signing here or there or a draft choice here or there. But he then says, I have a 5 and a 5 out of 10 optimism on Cousins being capable of winning games that matter versus quality teams. And he's talking about San Francisco, New Orleans, Seattle, Green Bay, NFC playoff teams. Mm-hmm. He adds another tweet, says 5.5 means basically it's opponent, coaching, and cast dependent on whether he'll perform. I have a relatively high confidence in the cast, but the opponent can have a game plan to stop the run or get enough pressure that could torpedo the offense, so I can't have confidence in Kirk. What are your thoughts there?
Okay, so the part that sticks out to me is cast dependent, which I think that's a fair criticism, but I think that's a fair criticism of literally every quarterback.
Yeah.
Literally 100% of... Look at Carson Wentz right now. I think that this is probably a good point of reference. Carson Wentz, 2 years ago, MVP candidate before he gets hurt. I don't think that his play has dropped off since he got hurt. Like, in terms of his ability to perform as a quarterback, I don't think he's different. I think the surrounding cast around him is much different. Nelson Aguilar can't catch balls. He's basically got 2 Pro Bowl caliber tight ends to throw the ball to. Alshon Jeffrey is off. If he's on the field, he's dropping passes, and a lot of the time he's hurt. The running back situation is a rookie Miles Sanders who was ineffective. Jordan Howard, who was out this week, but is basically a guy who's going to get you four yards no matter what and nothing better ever. And they just had to sign Jay Ajayi because they don't even have enough backs. So that's the cast that he's working with. And they're losing games. It's not because of Carson Wentz. It's because of the guys that are around him. You could say the same thing about pretty much everyone, with the exception of guys like, I don't know, Mitchell Trubisky, who finds ways to lose games. Has Kirk done that in the past? Yes. Has he done that in recent memory, so talking like 8 games? No, I think the cast has failed Kirk more than Kirk has failed the team, at least in the last month plus or so.
Let's just look at this cast, right? Because, the Vikings are missing Adam Thielen.
Yeah, but
superstar Pro Bowl receiver.
But they do have arguably they have the second best running back in the NFL, the best one not named Christian McCaffrey, and they have Stephon Diggs, who is. I mean, you can argue he's higher than this, but I'm going to say he's a top 15 wide receiver in the NFL.
Let's look at this game in particular. So, cast dependent, opponent dependent. These are all fair criticisms of Kirk. I think in the past and given the way his career has played out. But I don't think this Broncos game is a good example of that, especially in the second half, because you have, if we're talking about the opponent, Denver's defense is borderline top 5 in the NFL.
Yeah.
Or where it was going into the game. Their rankings are going to fall a little bit now because of Kirk. You have the running game was stuffed. So Dalvin Cook was essentially a non-factor in this game. He had one or two kind of explosive plays on
passes. He was a straight-up non-factor.
But pretty much non-factor.
As a receiver, too, by the way.
Yeah. And Stephon Diggs, obviously, huge playmaker, got past Chris Harris there, but that ball was absolutely perfect. Like, a lot of receivers...
It was in stride.
I don't want to discredit Stephon Diggs and his ability to get open, but that was a perfect throw that a lot of receivers with the right speed would have been able to make. Right. So, I don't think this game is a good example of what he's talking about. Now, I'm still on the kind of a little bit skeptical of Kirk in primetime games, against really good opponents like this. Seattle game is going to tell me a lot about Kirk. But, I understand those concerned about Kirk and a little skeptical still, but the performance against Denver went a long way for me.
Yeah, I'm with you for sure. I understand the kind of the harping on narratives, because Vikings fans have this inherent expectation that the Vikings are going to blow it. And Kirk Cousins has somewhat epitomized that sentiment throughout his career. He is the personification of how you feel about the Vikings in big games. The fumbles, the stupid interceptions, the baffling slides to not get a first down. He just does so many little things where you're like, oh my God, this is what it's been to be this is what it's like to be a Vikings fan. So I get it. And I get that we have some sort of minor level of PTSD because of that. I get it. Okay? But it hasn't been like that. How long does he have to be good for us to start being like, okay, maybe, you just have a bad game every once in a while. I mean, Tom Brady played terrible yesterday. Okay? Are we still saying that he's not good? Are we going to say that he's not good? I mean, some of you might be like, oh, he's old, he's regressing, whatever. Dak Prescott has a bad game every now and then. He's an up-and-up quarterback. Most of you guys would agree that he's a good quarterback now, right? Lamar Jackson got smoked by the Browns. Was that just a bad game? I don't know. I mean, quarterbacks sometimes just have bad games. I'm starting to believe that it's more of an outlier than a consistent issue with Kirk Cousins right now. That's where I'm getting to. And Seattle will prove that game. Will kind of prove that point, I think.
Yeah, that Seattle game is going to tell us a lot
about
Kirk, about this team, about how serious they should be talked about in the NFC. Our last one here from Adam New at AdamJNew85. He says an 8. All the things Kirk couldn't do, he's proving he can. Thielen to come back hopefully after the bye. Cook still does okay even when he has a bad game. And a nice bye week now to rest up for the final push. I don't think Cook was effective at all. I think Denver rendered him basically a non-factor like we talked about. But I think the larger point here that I want to touch on is the bye week is very much needed right now.
Yeah.
A lot of banged up, Linval's out, Adam Thielen's out.
Kurt, and then you got hamstring with Harrison Smith,
Yep.
and by the way,
Anthony
Cook,
Harris.
Yeah, Anthony Harris too. But we kind of glossed over the fact that Delvin Cook had like a shoulder.
Yeah, he did.
He
too.
hurt his shoulder.
It looked like a collarbone injury at first, which it doesn't. It doesn't appear to be that because he went back in and played.
Yeah,
but that was scary.
It would be nice, and on top of it, they get 14 days of rest too from today as
plus,
of this recording.
They're playing Monday night. Yeah, they're playing Monday night. That's right. That's an extended bye.
This is coming. I mean, it seems like bye weeks always. I mean, maybe it's just the inherent nature of a bye that every team kind of needs time to, recoup, re-energize or whatever. But this really feels like at 8-3, you got an important 5-game stretch coming up. You want everyone healthy for these 2 or 3 very big games. Seattle, San Diego, Los Angeles, who's a good team and a team that you need to beat, and then that's on the road. And then you've got Green Bay coming to town. I mean, it could not be coming at a better time.
Yep. Okay, and then I guess last on the docket here was, I know you wanted to touch on fandom. You've teased me a little bit with the rant, perhaps a rant. I don't know if we'll see what unfolds here, if it's a rant or what it is.
I'm in a better mood. I'm in a better mood now than I was when I texted you that. So I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. All right. Yeah. The floor is yours, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So, the reason why this is coming up now is because after the first half during the Vikings game, I want to say that 90% of you, and this includes myself, and I'll let you speak for yourself, but most of us thought this game was over, right? We went into this half saying it's going to take a miracle. Like that's like the highest level of praise was it's going to take a miracle to come back and win this game. So a lot of you guys were very frustrated, and I don't really love tweeting that much anymore, but I do love to read your guys' thoughts during Vikings game. I love to scroll up and down my Twitter feed and read your reactions to every little thing. And so I spent probably too much time doing that. And a lot of you guys are very passionate fans, and I respect the hell out of that. And I think it's really important that you have the right to be whatever type of fan that you want to be, okay? Now, what I'm ramping up to here is I want to have kind of a broader discussion about just fandom in general. And like the way that other fans treat each other, how they interact when things kind of go sideways. The natural reaction, and social media is the epitome of this because it's literally got everyone from the most rational fan to the most irrational fan all in one place. It's all grouped together, so you're going to see literally everything. Okay, you got some fans who are just off the wall, and that is your right as a fan. Okay, and then you've got other fans, I like to classify myself in this group, who are a little bit more rational. They don't take it personally. They don't let it ruin their day. They try to have sort of a mature approach where they're seeing it as just a game and it's not really about your life. It's not going to ruin your life. That's kind of where I stand as a fan. Now, the way that people like me interact with the other group, the irrational group, is like it's hilarious, first of all. But second of all, it's like it doesn't make sense to me. The rational fan loves to discredit the fandom of the irrational fan. Okay, so you've got these people, and by the way, I do not condone this type of behavior. I understand. Well, I don't understand it, but like you've got some people who are just carpet bombing Twitter with F-bombs when the Vikings go down. And while I share your sentiment, I don't understand why you have to like. I don't get, like, do you not have an employer that might look at that? Like, are you not concerned about, like, your public image at all? Like, I don't understand that, but like I get where you're coming from, but like that doesn't make sense to me. And then you've got the other side who is just chastising this group and saying, like, you're not a real fan because you don't like that, you don't believe in the team anymore. Okay, I said this earlier. I think that's delusional. It's literally delusional to me to just think that the Vikings are in every single game. Objectively speaking, from every statistic, 96% chance that Denver was going to win that football game. It is okay to say, this team sucks right now. I hate this. Insert expletive. It is okay to think that way. And it doesn't discredit your fandom either. In fact, it might make you more of a fan because you're so passionate that you're quite literally exploding with, like, emotions because of it. I think it's a dangerous way to live your life. And I think that a lot of you guys, as you kind of get older, because I remember being 18, 19, 20 years old and thinking that way, ride or dying with this team. And I think as you get a little bit older and you find other things to love it becomes less important in your life that the Vikings win. But, like, you're not less of a fan. And I think that's so ridiculous to call people out. It legitimately bothers me to be like.
So you're saying, you're talking about the people that would have gotten, old take exposed type of thing yesterday, where, like, if they had said, like, well, this team sucks, 7-4 now, whatever.
Yeah.
And then the fans that go back in and say, oh, you're not a true fan if you jumped off the bandwagon.
I think that's so absurd. It's so absurd. And I love old takes exposed. I think it's equally absurd to get mad about getting old take exposed because everyone has cold takes. I mean, I probably have one somewhere in this episode right now. But, so I think it's ridiculous to get mad at that, but I also think it's ridiculous to say, like, you are not a true fan. You're a bandwagoner. You're whatever type of adjective you want to say because you get pissed off or you believe you don't have faith. It's like faith is so subjective. There's a reason why there's 50 different types of religions in the world. It's because everyone's faith is different, and people go up and down with this roller coaster ride with their faith. I am not someone who is going to stare into a 20-0 lead and say, I still believe in this team. That's so ridiculous to me. Like, it's so okay of you to be like, all right, 7-4. We probably aren't going to win the North. This sucks. I hate Sundays. Football's the worst. Can't wait till 2 weeks from now when the Vikings lose again to Seattle. Such a normal thing to say in that circumstance, and such a weird thing to say 20 minutes later, saying, "I told you so. I had faith that we'd come back." No, you're stupid. You're straight up dumb.
I don't know. I wasn't at the game, but from all accounts, every single fan in that stadium was booing, right? So we can make this an argument about booing. Like, if you're booing a team, then you're not a proper fan. You're not, you shouldn't be cheering for the team. Whatever. Like this, that's a whole other argument. But okay, from my perspective here, you can cheer for the team however you want to cheer for them. Right. And at the same time, if you're criticized for the way you cheer for your team, who cares? Who cares?
First of all, who cares? And second of all, that person has the right to dislike the way that you are a fan of the team.
Doesn't matter. Nothing. I mean, people care too much about how others want to.
They can't.
Doesn't matter. Like,
you're not going to change someone's mind. They've been a fan for however many years. Like, they're going to be that way. Like, they might, like I said, and mature is really not the right word. They might grow in their fandom. Their fandom might change. They might become a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't had some
rational
sort of epiphany with Vikings by this point, where, like, if I was at the point yesterday, I thought the game was over at 17 or 20-0. I thought it was over, and I'm with you. That's totally normal. I'm trying to look back on it and see if it was stupid, but I don't think it is. Like, given the numbers, given the statistical percentages, I guess there's no way. Plus, the Vikings, I don't know if I want to say cursed. There's just no way the Vikings should win that game. So I don't know. It's however you want to fan.
I think that fandom is so interesting, just in general, because like you have the side that I said, you got the people who are dropping f-bombs up and down the timeline, saying that every single Vikings player sucks, mainly Kirk Cousins for what it's worth, no matter the situation, and that's hilarious too. And then, but the other side is just as ridiculous to me when they're sitting there and they're like #faith. I'm like, no, #dumb, dude. Like that's just you're being absurd. Like it's so not it's not rational either way. You're both like you're extremists on either side. Like you got to find some sort of middle ground. And if you can't find that middle ground, you don't need to. I don't care if honestly I don't care if you do. But like at the same time, like you can't get pissed off at someone for thinking differently about the way that they cheer for their team. Like you can't get mad about that. And if you're not going to change, then like you said, who cares? But if you are, again, if you're not going to change, why are you debating what's acceptable and what's not? Why are you calling people out for saying you don't know how to be a fan the right way? Why is your way of being a fan the right way? I just think that being rational.
Let's all just be fans how we want to be fans.
That's what I think, and that's what it comes down to. I just think it's so absurd that it's just like. But it's again, I say all of this by also including that it is very entertaining for me. I enjoy the mix of emotions that I see. But I also think I also kind of look at it sometimes and I'm like, I don't know about that take. Or I don't know. But that's just, that's my approach. And you can have a different approach. And that's cool with me, but for sure probably think about the fact that your employers are going to be looking at your Twitter account.
Yeah,
right?
I've thought about that, and I know for a fact that it happens.
I do too. Yeah, especially in this age.
It is a fact that it happens. And, depending on your position, it might be less important what you say on social media, but it.
Don't you? But
if you're displaying that much emotion on your social media account about a football game, it's not a great.
I mean, if you were just objectively speaking, if you're hiring someone, right? I know that you're not going to be in a position to do that for probably at least some time. But if you at some point you get to the point where you're hiring someone, are you going to if you look at their Twitter account and you just see this flurry of just kind of curse words up and down, they don't know how to filter themselves whatsoever on social media, that's going to rub just about everyone the wrong way, right? You're never going to look at that.
I don't know. We're getting into a discussion that's a little bit off topic about being a Vikings fan, but
that's true. That's true.
I think you can only learn so much from somebody's social media accounts, but
that's true.
It
is very.
It gives you an expectation for when you meet the person, in person.
Yeah.
You have an expectation of what might happen.
Yeah.
And sometimes that might be a negative perception, but all right, we're kind of getting some life lessons here on the Unbelievable podcast. Yeah.
I do. It's interesting. Feel free to share your thoughts with me, because like I said, I do like reading them, and now that we're posting on Daily Norseman, I do read all of your guys' comments. I'm going to read every single one of them, and I don't care if it's negative or positive, whatever, because it's fun for me. So if you have thoughts on the show or this little,
criticize us for sure.
Do it.
If we're doing something wrong, definitely tell us.
Yeah,
we might not change what we're doing, but we also might.
You never know. All right, guys. Well, that is the show. I hope that you guys appreciated everything from the breakdown to where we just got a little bit sidetracked there. But that's a fun discussion for me
when
to
the
have.
Police visited your apartment.
They're so fun. They're so funny too.
I'm going to be interested to see if there's any feedback on that, because I literally just tried to I was admittedly very rattled when you just left, and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to just try and power through here. Let's see here. How long am I going to have to go solo here? And I'm just talking about this tweet, and then I see another one, and and then you come back, and then I reread the tweet that I was talking about already. And
yeah, we apologize for that. The cops were funny though. They were good cops. Egan cops are great. Anyways, if you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes. We appreciate it. If you want to leave a written review, we also appreciate that as well. Like I said at the top, you can find us on Daily Norseman and the Climbing the Pocket Network. Make sure to check out the rest of the podcasts they have available there. They're all excellent, a lot of different personalities. So if you don't like us, maybe you'll like someone else. We appreciate all of it. And YouTube as well. If you like watching videos instead of listening.
You might want to watch this one. I want to watch this one.
This might be an entertaining one to watch. Yeah, you can find it on YouTube. Unbelievable. You can find that there, and then the Twitter account. Share your thoughts with us there as well. Unbelievable_MN. We appreciate it all. So thanks for listening, guys, and we will catch you later on this week.